But I did want to ask you some advice because we had touched on this last Turning Two, and I did a whole show on Bronny and being thrust into that spotlight, especially because there's questions on whether he's a legitimate NBA player or not, and he got a NBA contract, not the two-way, which in basketball I could send you to play in the developmental league, or I can keep you and you can go on that shuttle back and forth. He's a Laker for 4 years. I was going to ask you some advice
Yeah.
because you've experienced on both sides, right? You were the son of a big leaguer, and you had to earn your respect. Obviously, you say you were a better player than your dad, um, but when you were a kid, nobody knew how good you were going to be. And then you're the first third generation, so you have that hanging over your head as you're trying to get to the big leagues. And Bronny's going to have every time someone talks about him, is like, what's it like to be LeBron James' son? And then you also could probably offer some advice for someone, and you don't have to give it to LeBron if you don't want to, but you have a kid who's following your footsteps, and you now see it from the other perspective. So I wanted to get your thoughts.
I just think, I saw this, and you've got a young kid was at USC a year ago. Um, I think his father's doing him a big disservice. I think LeBron James is doing the biggest disservice you could do to a son, is to obviously wield your influence to get him in a position, like you said, and it goes beyond the contract of 4 years, but putting him in a spot where I'm far from a basketball expert, but
Just
every
just just as a dad and in life and a professional athlete.
I think to put that on your son, especially when you're potentially the GOAT, you're definitely in the conversation of the greatest of all time. That's enough hanging over your head as a kid coming up. Man, try walking in those shoes. I had tough shoes to walk in, my dad and grandpa to follow. But that's nothing like walking in the greatest of all times. Try walking in Babe Ruth's son's shoes. You couldn't imagine that. Um, and then to be thrusted in this position where he was a freshman last year and he averaged 4 points
Right.
coming off the bench for USC, which is far from a powerhouse in the
They
basketball
will
arena,
be now, though, because they've got a new coach.
right? But to be kind of like, hey, you declare for the draft. So what you're telling me is he's the 55th best amateur in the world? The thing that was sad to me is this. I saw, and this is not, I don't want to get personal with him. It's just
Right.
the situation. Sports is sports. You can't have daddy's influence get you in a position because the talent at the highest level will run you over. It's not like other industries where dad calls in a favor and you can get a job. The top level, the NBA, the NFL, NHL, pick anyone you want. You can't fake the top level. The competition will crush you. I think he needed, and this is coming from guys that I respect. I watch in the industry. I'm not a basketball expert, don't
Sure.
claim to be. But nobody has said he is ready to go to the NBA. Nobody
Right.
I've heard say that's an NBA prospect. And the fact that I saw him doing an interview the other day and he said, hey, it's the NBA. They don't just draft people because of who my father is. I'm thinking, could you be more self unaware? Of course, that's the only reason. The amount of resentment he's going to witness, not only from his teammates, but by guys on the other team, by uh, just his peers, guys he's leaving in college. Imagine how they look at him right now. Oh, daddy get you. I couldn't imagine it. I think, Rich, we've talked about it, but I had a small, not on the same scale. It was my first spring training. I was in minor league camp. My father was 42 years old. He's trying to play one more year. He signed with the Seattle Mariners. The year was 1991. It was in spring training. I got a phone call and they said, Brett, I'll tell you what we want to do. We want to bring you up from minor league camp, playing the big league game. Your dad's going to catch. We think it's going to be great. I hated the idea. I thought it was a circus. I knew that after that big league game, because getting called up when you're in minor league camp, getting called up to a big league game, that's a big deal. You earned that. I mean, guys start looking at you like, wow, we got to go to big league camp. If I would have taken that invitation, gone to big league camp, I'd have come back down to A ball and they'd be like, oh, yeah, big leaguer, you get to go up because of your daddy. I couldn't imagine facing that. And I didn't want any part of it. I said, and my dad agreed with me. I said, it's a circus. This isn't a circus. This is what I'm trying to do for a living. One day when I earn the right, I will be on that big league field. But I'm not going to go up there to just say I played with my dad when it wasn't legitimate. So I can't imagine. I mean, that was me, the kid, wanting no part of it. And I couldn't imagine being the kid wanting every part of it. I don't understand it.
Do you regret that at all? Now,
Absolutely not.
you don't regret not being on the field with your dad in uniform playing with them for at least one
Absolutely
game?
not. Absolutely not. It wasn't legitimate. It wasn't real. It was a staged. That would have been a movie. Oh, look, when I watched Ken Griffey Sr. and Ken Griffey Jr. in the big league outfield, and they have that clip, they went back to back.
Right.
They have that clip of Ken Jr. catching the ball in front of Ken Sr. That's unbelievable because
That's legit.
That's legit. Nobody says, oh, they just signed Kenny. Maybe they signed Kenny to play with his son, but at the same time, he was still a big league player. He was coming off a year where it warranted playing another year in the big leagues.
Right.
It wasn't fabricated at all. It was a legit Ken Griffey Sr., really good player in his own right, long career, big red machine, great career.
Great career.
Ken Griffey Jr., Hall of Famer.
Right.
But the fact that they played together was above board. Everything was right. Yeah, maybe you signed. Now, if I was in the big leagues and we found a way my dad's last year to get a trade to my team, doesn't matter. He's still a big leaguer. I'm a big leaguer. That's legitimate. Right. That would be cool. But to the way they wanted me to do it, I had no rights being on a big league field at that time. I hadn't earned it yet.
The resentment. I know that you got tired of the media asking you every place you ever went, what's it like to be the potential to be the first, third generation? And I know you've told me before that it got old after a while and you didn't want to talk about your grandpa. You didn't want to talk about your dad. You wanted to be your own man. We've never actually talked about the resentment. Were there resentment? Did people try you? Oh, look at this Boone kid. He got drafted. He's here just because of his daddy. Did you face any resentment? Did people try you a little bit?
When I was young.
Yeah, when you were young. That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
So hold on a second. You talked about Bronny. If I'm playing in the summer league right now, I'm going to go make a name for myself by dunking over the top of the kid. I'm going to take it to the kid and embarrass him. I'm going to break his ankles so I can get some of this pub that he's getting. So did you face any of that when you were young?
Not at the minor league level, because baseball is, you get drafted and you're in the minor leagues, your talent speaks for itself. So there's no favors once you get to professional baseball. Daddy has nothing to do with anything. So I didn't feel it at that level. I felt it when I was a kid. You know, when I was a little leaguer, when I was in the Little League All-Star team and pony ball. Oh, that's Bob Boone's son. You know, there was resentment from other kids. I didn't really care because my job, I'm just going to steamroll you. I didn't care.
Did it add to your fire?
That didn't hurt my feelings.
Did it add to your fire?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if some snotty-nosed kid could really add to my fire.
I'm like, you put a chip on your shoulder? I mean, listen, so you're playing, I can't remember, where'd you play high school? El
Dorado.
El Dorado. I knew it was an L. You're at El Dorado. You're going to go take on Modern Day. I'm sure you heard the catcalls. Oh, hey, big leaguer, come on. Hey, look, there's Booty's kid. Go get him.
Not so much. Once you establish yourself as a high school really good varsity player,
right?
It's kind of, that doesn't work anymore, like, because it's legit and everybody knows it. So it's not as, you're not going to hear that. Maybe at right before high school, like you're on that pony team and oh, it's Bob Boone's son. Oh, that's why he's on the all-star team. Right. I heard that my whole life growing up as a little kid. Once you start to get to high school and you start to earn it, nobody really cares who your dad is. Once you got to the minor leagues and you're putting numbers up, in my case, yes, because it was the storyline. It had never been done before. So as a reporter, of course, they've got to cover that. I just resented it because I wanted them to cover what I was doing on the field, why I was going to from A ball to double A in 1 year, why I was in triple A and on the cusp being called to the big leagues. Had nothing to do with grandpa, had nothing to do with dad, had to do what I was doing on the field. But I also understood from a media standpoint, they have to cover this because it is a story. So I got it. Doesn't mean at times I didn't get a little frustrated with the coverage.
Can we pull the curtain back a little bit on the Boone family?
I don't care.
Okay. So we see this with professional athletes and people, Deion Sanders has his kids playing for him. LeBron's going to play with his son. But I've seen some really great professional athletes. I think of the late Bill Walton, who was a friend of this podcast, came on with us, an amazing human being. And I remember him with Luke. When Luke decided to go to the University of Arizona, Bill would show up and he'd sit in the student section. Mm-hmm. And you'd see all these, 5'2", blonde hair, blue-eyed co-eds. And then right in the middle of them is a 7-foot redhead sticking up above everybody else in the Zona Zoo. And I just remember how supportive he was, but it wasn't like he was living his dream vicariously through Luke. He had already accomplished so much in life. And I see and sometimes I've probably been guilty of this, trying to live my life vicariously through my son, which is something a father shouldn't do. But go through this for a little bit for us, for all the families out there. Their kids are playing travel ball. Maybe their kids are playing football and the dad wants so bad to help them. You have it with Jake. Jake's playing minor league baseball, and I see you being supportive, but not living your life vicariously through him. Give some advice to folks that have kids that are playing on where the line is, because I think Bill Walton had that line. Other dads like myself fail miserably at it.
Well, the way I am with Jake, and I try to make myself invisible whenever I'm with him. I speak when I'm spoken to. I give advice when I'm asked. I pick and choose my times. Timing is really important.
Right.
But I learned all this from my father. My dad was as great of an example as I could imagine growing up. How he made himself invisible. When I was growing up, because my dad played a long time in the big leagues, he had me at a young age. So my entire childhood and young adult life my dad was a big league baseball player. So he was always recognizable. And if my dad was at one of my games, he was probably watching my game before he had to go to his game.
Right.
And he was never that guy, never had something to say, never brought attention to himself, would watch me play, would slowly sneak out of the arena wherever we were, sneak away from the ballpark. And depending on where I was, how I was doing, was I playing well? Was I struggling a little bit? That discussion would come probably the next day. And he would come up to me sometime, "Hey, how you feeling? What do you think about those at bats yesterday?" And that's how it was brought to me. And so, whether it was good or bad, I'd have an answer for him, and we'd have a discussion. Never put any pressure on me. I never felt like I had to live up to anything. It was the game of baseball was exposed to me at a young age. And I hear my dad through the years, he did interviews. He said, I gave him the platform. I took him to the ballpark. I showed him the game of baseball. And if he loved it, that's awesome. And if he didn't, I'd support him in whatever he chose. I took that on as a parent. And from my daughter, who's my oldest, to my three sons, it's basically, yeah, I hope here's baseball. I hope you love it. And I hope you pursue it. But if not, everybody can't be a big league baseball player. So whatever you do, I'm going to be there and support it. But whatever you do, do it to the best of your ability. I always had that from my dad. Never. It's crazy because I never felt an ounce. To this day, I've never felt an ounce of pressure to
Right.
live up to anything in the family because that's my parents took that off me. They didn't make me feel that way. My grandpa didn't make me feel that way, and and maybe my personality had something to do with it too because I had blinders on it. I didn't really give a crap what anybody had to say. I was going forward, get out of my way. So I think personalities come into it too. How you're born, genetics, how you think. God gave you a certain kind of a brain. Well, my
Right.
brain was I don't give a shit, get out of my way brain.
So it sounded like your dad loved you more than he loved baseball.
Yeah, he was great. He was a
Yeah.
tremendous example.
And maybe
And
that should be an example for parents, especially, you've seen Travel League. I mean, I see dads out there. I see AAU coaches. I see 7-on-7
well,
dads.
I did it. I coached travel ball for years, and I saw it up close. It's like you guys are crazy, you
I'd rather
parents. You're
pick I'd pick the
crazy.
parents over the players because the
Let
parents are the ones that
Johnny
ruin it.
play.
Yeah.
Let Johnny be a little leaguer that, you know, let
I
him
mean, how
have, and I say it all the time. Let him go get his pretzel, his hot dog, go roller skating, whatever the kids do. Let him go chase girls. Let him be a kid. Little Johnny's not going to the big leagues. Let me tell you that right now.
you mean, wait a minute, Brett? Because again, your 2 million people have seen you on X in the last 24 hours. I also see about 2 million people that have every goofy, crazy drill in baseball that's going to make little Johnny a big leaguer.
Big, excuse
I know
me.
you're getting all choked up over this. There you go.
Here's
Brett's
my
clearing his
thought.
throat. Okay, go ahead.
I hate to say it, but you are born a big leaguer. You are wired a certain way. Um, and all the coaching, all the
Drills,
extracurricular activities, you play on
equipment.
8 travel ball teams, and you got the greatest bat.
Right,
Uh, if you're not a big leaguer, you're not a big leaguer. It doesn't matter.
right.
And that being said, if you are born with a ridiculous amount of talent, it doesn't matter how much you don't play baseball. If Ken Griffey Jr. didn't pick up a baseball bat till he was 18 years old, he would still be Ken Griffey Jr. That's
Okay,
just the way it is.
okay,
Now, I'm not saying these. I don't want to be that guy that blows back on all the the travel ball teams and stuff. Every kid doesn't have to play baseball because they want to be big leaguers.
right.
Some kids just want to play baseball because they love baseball.
I'd rather play
So
baseball as
there's
long as I
nothing wrong.
can.
There's nothing wrong with getting instruction, going to camps to be the best you can be. There's
Right.
nothing wrong with that.
Be the best version of yourself you could be.
Right. I loved basketball growing up, Rich. The writing was kind of on the wall that I wasn't going to be an NBA player.
Yeah,
But probably instructions could have made me the best player I could be. It
right,
doesn't have to be NBA. And if we took the perspective of I just want him to be the best player he can be for his skill set, well then there's nothing wrong with that. But I don't think that's the motivation behind it is the selling they're selling the dream of come with me, I'll turn you into a Division 1 player. I'll turn you into a pro ball player. I'll turn you into a big leaguer. And that just ain't so. You're either a big leaguer or you're not a big leaguer. You don't take a non-big leaguer and turn him into one. It's
okay.
impossible.
All right. Flip side of that, Brett. Flip side of that. If I had Ken Griffey Jr. as a
Right.
kid, could I ruin him and keep him from being a big leaguer? There's a guy, the most talented athlete you've ever played with. For
Well,
sure, you could tell his
I'm sure Ken Griffey Sr. Took kind of the perspective that my dad took. Hands
right.
off.
But
Listen,
okay, let me restate this. Can I take someone who has potential to be a big leaguer and ruin them by being a bad influence, making them play too much, overplaying them, burning them out
sure,
of the game?
burning him out without a doubt, making making it your will, not his, telling him this is what I want you to do because I see this in you. Go, go, go. When that's not the kid's, that's not his passion.
Right.
First of all, for 99% of us, You got to be born a certain way, and you got to
Right.
have a passion for what you're going after. If you don't have the passion, you'll get run over by somebody with equal talent that has the passion.
Right.
Like I said, 99% of us, the Griffeys of the world, okay,
He's
even if he wasn't passionate about it, he could still be as good as we were.
right.
He doesn't have to be. If LeBron James wasn't passionate about basketball, he'd still be better than most people because he's just that talented. So I'm talking about just the
Yeah.
normal, the rest of us. You need to be passionate or you got no chance.
Okay.
But
Let's move on.
you can't force passion on a kid.
All right.